Leafs,
NHL,
rumors,
prospects,
banter,
and everything in between.
This is the Shanaclan podcast
with Hobbs
and
Lugtsy.
Welcome back to the Shanaclan podcast. I'm Lugtsy here with Hobson, and I just wanted to get something off the bat right away. I think we owe a big thanks to someone who is probably the reason we got involved with hockey. I started playing hockey at 3 years old. Hobson, I know you started playing hockey at a later age, but I'm sure you started watching right from birth as well, just like I did.
More or less, yeah.
This person happened to be the father of the greatest NHL player of all time. I won't be taking any questions on that. No comments, no further comments on that. No debates. Greatest player of all time. Walter Gretzky is collectively Canada's hockey dad. And he is literally the root of the reason why I got into hockey. Wayne Gretzky is the greatest player of all time. And knowing Walter Gretzky, I didn't know him, obviously, personally. I did meet him once. He was one heck of a guy. Super nice guy. And that just goes to show you, like, the hockey culture, although in some instances may be flawed, there are a lot of bright spots. And someone like Walter is truly a special person because he doesn't have to take photos with every single person that approaches him. He doesn't have to give autographs to every single fan that approaches him. He doesn't have to be nice. His son is literally the greatest hockey player of all time, right? He doesn't have to give his time to the community. He's already given enough to the community, right? And he was like, when I met him at a Leaf game, he was so nice.
Yeah, tell a little more about that. How'd that go down?
Like it was like, holy crap, that's Wayne Gretzky's dad. And a lot of people get a little like sour grapes. I don't know if sour grapes is the right word, but like, big deal. He's just the dad. He's not the player. But he's the reason why Wayne Gretzky is Wayne Gretzky, right? And when I got to meet him, it was special because like he was like, hey, yeah, I could take a photo with you. Got a photo with him. It was just at a Leaf game. It was when I was like 10 or 11. So it was like, holy crap. That's special, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah, I met Walter Gretzky when this was about the most perfect situation I could have run into. I was 9 years old and I went to a Leaf game with friend of the show, Lucas Tanner. He grew up a Kings fan. At the time, the Leafs and the Kings were playing in Toronto on Wayne Gretzky's birthday, January 26th. And Lucas had never been to an NHL game before. I think it was maybe my second or third game, but we were 9 years old. And my dad and I always had a tradition where anytime we'd go to a Leaf game in Toronto, we would go to dinner at Gretzky's before the game. And of course, unfortunately, Gretzky's has since been shut down, which really sucks. It was one of my favorite places to go in Toronto before a sports game. Went there before Leaf games, before Jays games. And because it was Wayne's birthday, Walter always made an appearance at Gretzky's restaurant in Toronto. And I remember like being 9 years old at the time, I thought it was the coolest thing. Like I thought this was just as cool as meeting Wayne Gretzky would have been. Because I'm thinking, this is a guy that raised the greatest hockey player of all time. And just like you said, probably the reason so many of us got into hockey. And I'm thinking this guy got to spend his entire life, or the better part of his life, with Wayne. And you're right. He is the most down-to-earth man I have ever had the pleasure of meeting. He just, he just really prioritizes giving back to the community. And he took pictures with so many people in that restaurant that day. And he came and he sat Lucas and I down. It was perfect because Lucas had the Kings jersey on. Obviously, Gretzky spent all those years with the Kings. And it was just a perfect situation. He was the nicest guy. He just talked to us like he didn't talk down to us at all. He realized it's just a couple of kids I'm probably making their life right now. And it's an experience I'm never going to forget having met him. Because the one thing that I think is really crazy and I think really shines light on how much Walter Gretzky meant to the Canadian hockey community is that every single person at some point or another every hockey fan, I should say, seems to have a story about him, about meeting him. Like, I think just about every person in my circle has met him. It's at a hockey game or at Union Station or at Gretzky's restaurant or just on the street even. And everybody's had a similar experience. Just, oh yeah, I got to talk to him. He was a super nice guy, super down to earth. And I think that just really says a lot about how amazing of a guy he is. And I actually want to pull a tweet from Terry Koshin of the Toronto Sun. He said that Walter Gretzky should be in the builders category for the Hockey Hall of Fame. And I wholeheartedly agree with that one. You know, he didn't ever, like, he built the game in the sense that not only did he raise the greatest hockey player of all time and inspire so many people to get into the sport, that's the glaring reason right off the hop, but he also was a very, very, he really gave back to communities. He founded the SCORE Initiative, which it's an organization that helps people who are visually impaired learn computer skills. He's provided over 500 visually impaired students with jobs. And like when Wayne was growing up, he was just a cable guy for Bell, if I recall correctly. He was a cable guy in Brantford.
Yeah, working in 8 to 5, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and just to have a guy like that, like you were saying, like he raised the greatest hockey player of all time. And I think for that alone, on top of all the charity work he's done and everything he's done, these tournaments he's organized just to raise money for causes like this, he is absolutely worthy of a builder spot in the Hockey Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I big time agree. And I just remember like the reason of like getting into hockey, like Wayne Gretzky. I remember watching like this documentary about Wayne Gretzky's career of like throughout his entire career in the NHL, and it was like, holy crap, this guy is so good at hockey. And that was like when I was like 3 or 4. I remember watching that like movie documentary, and then like Crosby's like the one who instilled the love of hockey into me. Like Gretzky got me into hockey, and like Walter is really like, I don't know, like it's just special, right? Like just to be able to say that you got to meet the greatest player of all time's dad, like the reason why Wayne is such a good player.
And like you said, hockey culture does have its flaws and it does have its areas where they need to improve. But I think the one thing that separates hockey culture from culture of other sports is how humble it is. Because you look at other sports, do you think kids growing up watching the NFL can say that they met Tom Brady's dad? Do you think that basketball fans can say that they met LeBron James's dad? Do you think baseball players can say they met Ken Griffey Jr.'s dad? Like, well, Ken Griffey Sr., I guess he's also pretty famous, but
there's two.
Regardless, the point that I'm trying to make is just the fact that he was so accessible and so many people have an experience with him. It just says a lot about how humble the hockey community is. Like, Walter Gretzky did not have to give anybody the time of day. He could have been like, okay, Wayne is the world's best hockey player. Just leave me alone. I've raised him. I want my peace and quiet. I don't want to be hounded by fans. But Walter said, fuck that. And he went and he decided to make a difference in all these people's lives. And you can't say that about any other sports. So, it's a really tough loss. I mean, he lived a great life, but it is sad to see him go for sure.
Right. And how old was he though?
82.
82. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a pretty good life. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. Good for him. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think Wayne said it best at the eulogy he delivered at Walter's funeral, where he said that the world would be a better place if there were more Walter Gretzkys out there, which is fact. Wrong. I mean, not everyone's going to have the ability to raise the greatest hockey player of all time, but I think if people carry about their lives with the mindset that Walter Gretzky had, I think the world would be a much better place for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And the one other thing, I know this is kind of like the bad view or like bad thing to bring up, but like I still don't understand why people would break into his house.
Oh yeah, that was terrible. And you know what? The worst part is that I'm pretty sure it was people that were known to the Gretzky family.
Yep.
It wasn't just a random break-in. It's not like it was a couple of fucking hooligans that just decided to hit up a house and it happened to be Walter Gretzky's. Like, it was people that knew him, had access to his house, and took advantage of him. Like, why the fuck would you do something like that to Walter? Of all people. Luckily, they were able to track down the memorabilia that was stolen. I think it made its way out to Alberta or something fucking ridiculous like that. Like Fort McMurray maybe or something like that. It was a rural Alberta, but they were able to track down the memorabilia and get it back to him, which is good news. But yeah, I don't understand. Of all people, why would you betray Walter like that? Like,
yeah, sick people in the world, man. And then So anyways, to sum it all up, Walter, we pay our respects to you, man. And he's in a better place. Rest in peace to Walt. And
Thank you for everything you did. Thank you for being Canada's hockey dad.
Yeah, like a genuine thank you. Like this is the reason I got into hockey is because of Wayne, and that's from Walter, right? So yeah,
Agreed.
just a thank you, a big thank you. So shifting gears now, though, a little more aggressive tones coming in. Tom Wilson's suspension. I think we can all agree that Tom had intent to injure on that play, and I'm quite frankly shocked that it was only 7 games. Shocked.
Yeah.
Absolutely shocked.
You know, I'm a little bit shocked. I think if it was anybody else, like I'm not agreeing with people who say this because I personally think it was a super dirty hit. I think there was clear intent to go for the head there. But I think there is an argument to be made, depending on how you look at it, that the hit wasn't fully intentional. And I think if it was somebody else that did it, it maybe would have been a game or two. But for Tom Wilson, seven games for him for something like that, I feel like that probably makes sense. I think it should have been. I think it probably should have been more. I would have gone maybe 10. But 7 games, I can't really complain that much. That's a significant chunk of the season when you consider it's only 56 games long. And I think,
but like the NHL's trying to remove headshots, though.
I know, and I understand that
doesn't send a clear enough message.
No,
like,
and
I just gonna keep doing it.
And I think that's where it comes back to the just the total lack of consistency when it comes to head injury or headshots and stuff like that being suspended for. Like, I don't know. I think it all, like I said, it all goes back to how short the season is, because I know that there was if you remember that this is comparing apples and oranges, but if you look back to the Joe Kelly suspension after he made the frowny face at Alex Bregman and threw at him. Yeah, I know.
That's worthwhile, man. That's worthwhile. Yeah. I love it.
But he was suspended for 8 games. And over a major league season of 162 games, that would have been about 20 games, 25 games. So 8 games is a significant part of this. 8 games doesn't seem like that much of a suspension, but when you consider that the MLB season was only 60 games long, that is a lot. So I think that's maybe why he only got 7 games. I understand that the NHL is trying to cut down on headshots, but I think over the course of an 82 game season, it would have been more like 15 games or something like that. I'm not justifying it. I know they're trying to crack down on headshots. I think it probably should have been more because that was a dangerous hit, and Carlo had to go to the hospital like via ambulance, I'm pretty sure. So
it's just interesting. Like they literally, well, I can't really blame the NHL for it, but like they kind of like ended Rafi Torres' career by suspension, right? Like I think his hit on Marian Hossa cut him out for like 40 games or something.
Could have been something like that. I mean, when you're a repeat offender, they just give less and less of a fuck every time you get suspended. They're like, oh, this guy again, all right, just pick a number out of that. We'll give him something above 10, 20 games. Like if you're a repeat offender, they don't take it lightly on you at all.
Well, I got to search up how many suspensions Tom Wilson has had, though. How many?
Oh, he's had a lot. Have you seen the memes where it's like Tom Wilson was suspended for 15 games because of Nazem Kadri's headshot on Jake DeBrusk?
Oh, yeah. Oh, my goodness.
Stuff like that. Like he gets suspended a lot. I think he's probably I'm not going to throw out a prediction because I have no idea either, but I feel like he's definitely got a decent amount to his name.
Okay, so March 2021 was that one. October 2018, that was the 20 games. Yeah, and Oscar Sundqvist.
Yeah, I think that was his that was a preseason suspension, wasn't it? Like
it was like the final game of preseason.
Yeah, and then it bled into the regular season. Okay,
yeah, and then the 2018 playoffs.
And
that was how many games was that now? Okay, doesn't. Okay, does it say? Does it say? Not really. Anyways, 2017 preseason, 2016 December. Like this dude, April 2016, April 2016, whatever. December 2015, December 2015, April 2015, December 2013. He's been in the NHL that long? Jeez.
Has he?
Oh, I guess so.
Wow.
Yeah, because he was a part of the 2012 draft with.
Well, yeah, but I didn't think he made the NHL. He made his debut in 13-14. So was it like a fall 2013 suspension?
Let's see here. December 2013.
Jeez, yeah, okay, that would have been his rookie season. And he was 19 years old that year.
Yeah, because I remember, like, for the longest time, fans were kind of chirping Tom Wilson for being a bust, because he'd been averaging like 15 to 20 points up until the 2018 postseason, and then he got that like 5-year contract worth like $5 million or something, and it was like.
Yeah. I thought that contract was a little nutty when it first happened, but he's lived up to it offensively. He's got 17 points in 21 games this year. Had 44 and 68 last year. Like, he's actually turned into a legitimate power forward. I'm not going to excuse his dirty plays, but like that, he's a legitimate top 6 forward now. Like, there's no more of this third, fourth line grinder.
You can be a good player by also being a dirty player. Like,
oh
Brad
yeah,
Marchand,
100%. Yeah.
Like, whew.
Now, before we get too deep into other NHL topics, Mark, I want to get your thoughts on the recent Leaf games we've seen. Let's start off with we'll off on a positive note. What did you think about the series against the Oilers?
Well, okay, so here's a funny thing. My girlfriend and I, we have a pretty good record whenever the Leafs play and we watch together. I believe the record is something like 8-0-1. And we saw all 3 Edmonton games together, and then the Vancouver games we didn't watch together. So
it sounds like you and your girlfriend have to move in together and watch every game. Do it for the team.
She'd love that, man. She'd love that.
I'm sure she would.
But here's the thing: like, I like watching those 3 games. I've never seen the Leafs play a better 3-game sequence in my entire life.
Me neither.
Like, I think any Leaf fan can say that.
Truth be told, I think the best 3-game sequence that I had seen before these Edmonton games were the 3 games against Vancouver. Like, both 3-game sequences that were the best that I had ever seen came this season. Like, I think that's pretty telling of how the year's gone so far.
Because like Toronto, like the best hockey they've played, like when it matters most in the playoffs, has only been like 2 games max, like against Boston, right?
Yeah.
Like, so like to see McDavid get shut out 3 straight games was like, what the, how do you do that? Going like 1-1-1 against Edmonton for me is fine because Edmonton's got McDavid and Draisaitl. That's totally fine. You're allowed to lose a game against.
Yeah. When those guys go off, you're fucked. I don't care who they're
You can't
playing,
do anything when they score, right? So
and that's why I kind of feel bad for whoever plays Edmonton next, because McDavid's going to be pissed off and Draisaitl's going to be pissed off, and the next team they face is going to have to deal with it.
Well, because Edmonton played Calgary last night, and
that's right, they did.
Yeah, McDavid got 3 points.
There you go.
I believe Edmonton won. So
yeah, now he's just knocking on the door though. Like, this is like I don't think 3 points is where he stops. I think the 2 guys that deserve some serious recognition during those Edmonton games are Jack Campbell and Michael Hutchison, though. I mean, it's unfortunate that Fred seems to be allergic to shutouts, because I thought it would have been the funniest, well, not the funniest, but just the most incredible headline I've seen in my time being a Leaf fan, for the Leafs to potentially have gotten 3 shutouts using 3 different goalies against the same team, 3 games in a row. That would have been unreal. And truth be told, like I don't blame Fred for that goal, and I really don't care that much. They still got, it was a convincing 6-1 win. So it's not like Fred came in and shit the bed. Like, it was a pretty shitty goal. Whatever. But either way, with Jack Campbell and Michael Hutchison, Campbell comes back from injury, puts up a solid performance. He gets the shutout, and then Michael Hutchison comes in and does the same thing. And after we saw Hutchison as Fred's backup last year, I think a lot of Leaf fans were more or less ready to give up on him and just say, fuck, well, because coming into this season, he was the 4th goalie, right?
Yeah.
And then Aaron Dell got waived, and he became the 3rd goalie, and it was still like, okay, well, as long as Fred and Campbell don't go down with injury, we won't have to worry about him. Naturally, both goalies suffered an injury at some point, and all of a sudden, we're back to last season. We're watching Michael Hutchison play consistent games, just like he did for the Leafs last season. And I'm going to give credit where credit's due. He was awesome. He's been a completely different goalie this year, and he still had his instances where it's like, oh yeah, that's a Hutch goal for sure. You can't be allowing that one. But
He looks a little squirrely in that.
He does.
Like
he does. And you know what? It's like I don't come into games. The difference is between this year and last year is last year, whenever Hutch would start, and I blame part of this on the fact that Babcock only ever used Hutchison on the second half of back-to-backs. But I think overall last year, whenever Hutch would start, I would just go into the game assuming we were going to lose. And I haven't had to do that this year because Hutchison's proven that he can, if the team in front of him plays a good game, and even if they don't play the best game possible, he's capable of stealing one. Like he got a shutout this year. And I think those two guys, as much as the entire team was kind of firing on all cylinders, and there wasn't really a weak link over those 3 games, I think like Hutchison and Campbell deserve just as much credit as the rest of the guys for the way they came in and produced in those first 2 shutouts.
Well, and that's also the other thing, like with Hutch, after Campbell got that shutout, it was like, okay, there's no way McDavid's getting shutout again. And
against Michael Hutchinson.
Like, there's no way Hutch is going to shut out McDavid. They're like, come on, this dude got like 100 points in 60 games last season. And the other thing too, is that it's not like they completely held McDavid away from the puck all game. Connor McDavid had some grade A scoring chances against Michael Hutchison, and Hutchison stood him up. Man,
it was truly a sight to see.
Dude, in each 3 of those games, it was like a friggin' fire drill within the first 5 minutes. It was like, all right, Jack, you're up, buddy. Okay, Mike, you're going in. You're facing 10 shots off the board right now. And then Fred comes in, and it was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Of course, Fred comes in, Austin comes in, it's all healthy, we're all fine now. Perfect game to lose. But then they won, and it was like, all right, yeah, that's
exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, then, I think the depth scoring deserves a lot of the credit in that series as well. I mean, Jimmy Vesey all of a fucking sudden has decided he wants his spot in the lineup, which I'd like. Let's just briefly talk about that. Is Jimmy Vesey playing to keep his spot in the lineup now? Because I think he's gotten to a point where you can't really scratch him until he slows down again. I mean, I think, truthfully, I think that Sheldon Keefe saying that Vesey has not been able to make his mark in the lineup offensively. You remember how before the season started, he said he was coming into camp with his hair on fire?
Yep.
I think that's happening now. I think Sheldon Keefe literally going to the media and saying, yeah, this guy's got a real good chance of losing his roster spot. Kind of set a fire under him. He's got 4 points in his last 5 games. He scored last night against Vancouver. He scored 2 goals against Edmonton on Wednesday. I'm not saying that I want him in there for the rest of the season, but at this point, he's helping the team score goals. So I don't know how you would take him out of the lineup until he slows down again.
Yeah, but I think the thing with Jim, though, is like he's benefiting from being in the right place at the right time. I don't buy all of the production he's got as of late. And I know that's a little bearish on him, and it's a little bit of a glass half empty kind of thing, but like, I don't know. I think it's just him playing with Jason Spezza. Like,
and that definitely helps. But my point is I don't think Keefe is looking at that and saying, oh, well, they've been easy goals, I'm still going to sit them. Like, I think as long as the goals are showing up, it'd be hard to, like, because how would you justify taking him out of the lineup for good after he finally figured it out offensively?
Right.
Like, that's all. Like, I'm not saying that Jimmy Vesey is all of a sudden some different player and like he's, they should put him in the top 6 again or anything like that.
No.
But Keefe has already specified that he likes Jimmy Vesey's defensive game. And he likes that he's able to use him on the penalty kill. He likes his speed. It's just the offense hasn't been there. But all of a sudden, the offense has been there over the past 5 games. And like I said, I don't think that's enough to justify keeping him in the lineup for consecutive amount of games for the rest of the season. But as of now, until he slows down, or if obviously he's going to slow down at some point. He's not going to be scoring like this for the rest of the season. But until he slows down, I don't think Keefe is going to be in a rush to take him out of the lineup. Maybe until Alex Galchenyuk's ready, and then they'll give Galchenyuk a look and see how he does. But I don't know. It's hard to say, but I think as of now, Jimmy Vesey's safe.
Yeah, and like production's production, results are results, right? So like you can't really turn your back away from that.
Buddy, when I played house league hockey in high school, I heard that quote more than anything else because I'd score. In my final year of playing, I think I scored pretty much 1 goal a game, and it was always from playing with 2 of the best players on the team, and I'd be right at the net ready to bank in the rebound.
Well, like I was like my second year of rep hockey, I got to play with like one of our better players on our team, and I was literally the Zach Hyman of the line. My coach was like, "Dump and chase. Don't worry about trying to snipe. Just get greasy, get to the dirty areas, make space for Hunter." That was his name.
Yeah.
And that's really what your role is. Just forecheck, lay the body, and get the puck. And it was like, all right, yeah, I can do that. I can be the pest. I can be the grit grinder. And our line was great. Our line was phenomenal.
That was my role too. I mean, back in high school, I kind of hit my growth spurt early. So there was a brief period of time. I'm nothing crazy now. I'm 5'11", but there was a period of time when I was like 5'9", 5'10", and most of the guys I was playing were like 5'4". So I was one of the bigger guys on the ice, and they would just send me to the net. And they'd say, plant yourself there. Pucks they'll fire pucks on net. You just have to bank it in. And my final year of house league, I turned into fucking Danny Heatley. I scored 15 goals in 23 games.
No, Jonathan Chichu. Chichu.
I don't know, man. Jonathan Chichu. How many seasons did he do that? Was it just once?
It was just the one, and then he got Danny like 35 goals the next year.
Danny Heatley had back-to-back 50-goal seasons, so I'd rather be called the Danny Heatley here than the Chichu. Okay, but both all-stars to their own respect. Now, I'm sure our 6 listeners are tired of listening to us talk about how good we were at fucking youth hockey. So, before we move away from the Leafs, let's touch on the Canucks series. So, for me, that first game against Vancouver was expected. The team looked tired. Demko was on fire. They got goalied. There's really nothing to complain about in that one. Second game was a little more concerning because the Leafs outshot the Canucks, and I thought the team looked way better than they did on Thursday night. But 2 goals in 45 seconds to lose the lead is a straight up flash to last season's Leafs. Those I've mentioned this on the podcast hundreds of times, I think. Maybe not hundreds, maybe tens of times, but the problem with last year's Leafs and the Leafs in the bubble were those spurts of like 1 minute, 2 minutes when they would just completely lose all focus. The other team would capitalize and they'd put up 2 to 3 goals. And all of a sudden it's a completely different game. And that was concerning. I did not enjoy seeing that last night. Having said that, though, I wouldn't call that a cause for concern. The Leafs have a pretty padded gap between first and second right now. And the team's 18-6-2. Yeah. So I'm not like it pissed me off last night watching that game. I wasn't happy to see a performance like that. But it's nothing for me to rant about yet. Like I understand good teams have stinkers. So I don't know. What were your thoughts?
Well, I was fortunate to only have watched the game on Thursday. I'm glad I didn't have to watch last night because I don't know. Like I'm guilty of pouring too much of myself into the Leafs at times. So it's, I don't know if I'm overreacting. I don't know if I'm underreacting when it comes to the Leafs sometimes, where it's like, okay, so you just had a 2-goal lead and you blew it. Should I get upset? You had a 3-goal lead and you blew it. Should I get upset? You had a 4-goal lead. Should I get upset? You had a 5-goal lead. Should I get upset? Right?
I think there. if you get into 4 and 5-goal lead territory, I think there's not even a question anymore. Yes, you should be upset.
Like 2-goal leads,
even 3-goal leads. Yeah, 2-goal leads is about 2-goal lead is about the last. I will about the least amount of the most amount of goals that I'll tolerate when it comes to blowing leads. And it also depends on the circumstances of any game, but I think a 2-goal lead is easier to defend than blowing a fucking 4-goal lead or a 5-goal lead. Right.
Yeah. And looking at Demko though, like if the goals aren't going in, the goals aren't going in. Mm-hmm. And you can't do a whole lot about that. Like the biggest thing to watch for, to want from the Leafs is like, okay, are they actually trying? Are they putting out a good effort? And with this year's team, like, I don't think that's really a question to be asked, right? Like, this is a different team. We all know that. It's a different team, but they still have some of these same skeletons in the closet of blowing the leads and whatever, the brain farts, right? Because, like, Morgan Riley's not the greatest defender. Marner.
Oh, Mitch Marner had a couple of fucking horrible giveaways that led to that fourth goal, I think it was, for Vancouver yesterday. There was one where he fired it right. It was like a cross ice pass from the left side of the neutral, or not the neutral zone, the Vancouver zone to the right side, and no one was there. It went right to a Canucks player, and then they got the puck back, turned it around, and tried to go back in. Marner got it, and he dropped it behind him, and Vancouver took it right back. It was horrid to see. And you know what? Every player fucks up like that. It happens.
Yeah.
And like you said, they ran into a hot goalie. Thatcher Demko in his last 4 games. So last night, 37 saves on 39 shots. Game before that, 31 saves on 32 shots. Game before that, 27 save shutout. Game before that, it was a loss, but he stopped 31 of 33 shots. Like, Demko's been on a bit of a heater lately. So, like, you can make the argument that, well, the Leafs have fucking Matthews, Marner, Tavares, Nylander. Like, you should be able to score. But goalies can shut out good players. It happens.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
And until these spurts of 3 minutes when the other team just explodes and scores 2 to 3 goals, until that carries into the next games against Winnipeg, I'm not going to be worried about it. It happens. No, they really haven't given me much to be upset about this year, aside from that bullshit game against Ottawa. We don't have to talk about anymore, but
no,
either way,
no, that's okay. Well, and like we're exactly preaching what we're talking about, because like Hutch against McDavid, right? Sometimes the puck just doesn't go in, right?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
We've all been there, and like and when you're playing in the game, like when you're getting those chances, it's like, okay, eventually one's got to fall in. But then, like, sometimes it just doesn't, and you just got to accept that and learn for next game on, all right, so here's how I can defend better, because if the goals don't go in, I can at least cover my own spot, right? So the Leafs, I hope that they take those games away with positives of like, okay, so here's how we can properly defend that instance, right? And I remember seeing the one goal, I think it was for Tannen that scored it on Thursday.
Yeah.
Hutch, it was the
best
goals I've ever seen. It was on that bad angle where Tannen shot across, and it was like, Hutch, man, how do you let that in? Like, you just got to stand.
And that's exactly what I was talking about before when I said that there were still a couple of, like, even though Hutch has been good this year, there's still been a couple of goals he's let in where it's been like, okay, that's a Hutch goal.
Yeah.
Like, you got to have that one, and you know what? Like, he does have to have it, but the way he's played this year, I'll give him a pass on that one. Like,
right.
So
yeah, there are things to learn from, right? Just watch the game tape and just be better on Tuesday.
I would agree. I think they'll come out. I think they'll come out ready for battle against Winnipeg. That's going to be an exciting series.
I like how they match up against Winnipeg.
So do I. So moving on here. Speaking of Winnipeg, Montreal just destroyed Winnipeg. What was the score? 5-0 yesterday. I think 7-1. Something like that. 7-1. Right. Sorry, it was 5-0 the last time I checked the score. But yeah, 7-1 final. So Montreal appears to be coming around after they fired Claude Julien. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and well, I feel bad for Chris Johnston, because like after every single Habs loss, it was like Leaf fans and any other Canadian rival of the Habs would just dump on Chris Johnston's tweet of like, well, the Habs are a juggernaut this year.
Yeah, and then did you notice that he said the Leafs look like a juggernaut 2 games ago, and then they proceeded to lose 2 games against Vancouver?
Well, funny you say that. I didn't see that.
Well, there you go. That could provide some explanation as to why the Leafs lost. So, Chris, I think you should just stop calling teams juggernauts.
Yeah, just put the phone down. Yeah. Keep the tweets away. Yeah, I was watching like how the Habs were doing, and like Habs fans, like once in a while I do log into Twitter. Like, I just go through what's trending. That's the only thing I can actually look at on Twitter.
Yeah, I was going to say log in. I don't think you can log in, buddy.
Well, I can. I can still use the account. I just can't like or tweet. That's all it is.
That sucks.
Yeah.
So you're a lurker now.
Yeah. Yeah. And Habs fans were pretty much convinced that Michel Therrien was like another carbon clone of Mike Babcock. He'd play players that had no business being played.
Buddy, I got to call you out there. It was Claude Julien, I think you meant, not Michel Therrien.
Oh.
It's okay, buddy. It happens. It happens.
He coached Montreal, so I don't know. He
For those of you that are listening right now and not watching, Mark just took his glasses off and did a big old eye rub after that one. It's okay. I'm sorry. I had to call that out.
I'm not gonna cut and post on that one.
Yeah, I feel like there are times you just got to own up to it. Like just like me a couple episodes ago with my horrible McDavid not being the heart winner take and then switching it up midway through. Sometimes you fuck up so bad you just gotta take it in stride and keep it in there.
Well,
anyways, continuing what you were saying about Claude Julien and how he's entering Mike Babcock territory.
I don't want to talk anymore.
No, you done?
Okay, so
is this a monologue for the rest of the episode for me?
Yeah,
Mark's logging
I'm just
off.
gonna.
Yeah, just you do the talking. All right.
No,
anyways, get back into it.
Claude Julien was considered by a lot of Habs fans to be like just a Babcock clone, like playing players where they had no business playing, and it was like, yeah, I've seen that one before. Philip shitty feeling.
Philip Deneau centering the first line when he's got 8 assists in 20 games this year. No goals.
Yeah, no goals. Yeah. And that was the thing. Like, I really, do I feel bad for them? I feel bad for the team. I don't feel bad for the players or for the fans. Sorry. I don't feel bad for the fans. Fans can go hum on it. I don't care. The team, like, I've seen that before. We've seen it as Leaf fans before. Like, holy crap, Mike, don't play him there, please. Like Matthews Marlowe situation, right? That kind of ring a bell.
Oh yeah.
And then
does it ever ring a bell?
And then like what you get with Carey Price though, like when he's on, he's the best goalie in the NHL. But the issue is he's making $10.5 million. So you have to pray to God that he's friggin' playing out of his brain, right? Mm-hmm. Otherwise, he's not worth that contract. And that's a question you have to ask now because he's in his 30s. You have to ask that question every single game. What Carey Price are we going to see tonight?
Yeah. You know what? I think you made a really good point with the whole Babcock comparison because I actually have a buddy who's a Habs fan and he watches all their games and he made the exact same comparison to me. It was like, sure, maybe he's not making Nick Suzuki organize the hardest working players on the team. He's not quite that bad Babcock level, but he's just kind of entering the territory of overstaying his welcome. And I think another team you can use as an example here is John Tortorella in Columbus. Like,
oh man,
coaches eventually just get to a point where it's not that they're any better. Like, cause you know what you're getting when you hire a guy like John Tortorella or a guy like Claude Julien or a guy like Mike Babcock. And you know what you're getting when you hire them. And at some point, it doesn't really have to do with their bad, like their lack of coaching, but more or less just the fact that the players needed a new voice. And Claude Julien, I'm sure there are teams out there that would hire Claude Julien. He's an established NHL coach. He won a cup with Boston. So I think that there are absolutely teams out there that would hire a guy like Julien. I don't think they fired him because he's a bad coach, but he seemed to have lost the dressing room just like Babcock did with the Leafs last year and just like Tortorella appears to have in Columbus. And it's sometimes just something as simple as that. You need a new voice in the dressing room. The old voice is getting kind of stale. And I know the Habs lost their first few games with Dominique Ducharme as their head coach, but that's to be expected. It usually takes a couple games for the players to adjust to a new system.
Yep.
But now, like we saw that 7-1 win yesterday, I also noticed that he played Jesperi Kotkaniemi with Tyler Toffoli and Josh Anderson. And I think that line's really going to heat up. I know Kotkaniemi is a guy that the Habs have been looking to get going for a while now. And I think eventually it's probably a refreshing feeling for Habs fans just to see a coach who is willing to adjust the lines and willing to shake things up if things aren't working. And I know we went through that same feeling when Sheldon Keefe took over for Mike Babcock.
Oh yeah.
And it's a good feeling. So yeah, I mean, we have our beef with Habs fans, but I would like to see them do well this year. It's the North Division. I think a playoff matchup would be awesome. And I empathize with them because I understand what it feels like to watch a coach who just refuses to change anything about the way he acts. And I hope Ducharme works for them. I'll go on record and say that. I hate the Habs. I know I've gotten into it with their fans, but I like to see things work out like that. So
hate the team, respect the franchise.
Exactly.
Sort of thing,
yeah.
So.
Mm-hmm.
That's the yeah, like it's always interesting to see how coaches fare with new teams with like no NHL experience. I think Ducharme has never coached in the NHL.
He hasn't coached an NHL team, but he did
No.
coach Team Canada to the World Junior Gold Medal at, I think it was in 2018. He was their head coach that year when they won the gold medal.
Who was the coach this year?
This year, oh man, I feel like a total fake fan for forgetting this.
I don't know. You don't know. It's okay.
Andre Tourini. That was his name.
That was the coach this year?
Yep.
Wow. Okay.
Mm-hmm. I knew it was a French guy. I couldn't remember what his name was.
Okay.
Yeah. Hopefully this doesn't ever go on record. I want to do some World Junior work eventually. So,
okay.
So while we're talking about coaches, the Calgary Flames appeared to rehire Daryl Sutter for like the 17th time ever. So what do you think about that? Is coaching really just an old boys club in the NHL or what?
Take a shot for every Sutter that gets hired in the NHL.
Or honestly, you could take a shot.
Bingo card or something.
You could take a shot for every time Daryl Sutter's been hired by the Calgary Flames in some capacity.
Because I think this is like the third time. It's the
Something
second
like
time
that.
for sure. It's the second time.
I think it's the third time.
I gotta search this up. Daryl Sutter. Daryl Sutter?
Yes.
I always mix it up with Daryl Sittler, and that's not good.
No, very different guys. Daryl Sittler actually smiles from time to time. Daryl Sutter does not. Daryl Sutter looks like a Muppet.
Oh dear.
Yeah, I mean, the Flames clearly have a good relationship with him, and if he can get the team going, then great. But if not, they should maybe pull the plug on bringing him back. Although it sounds like there's a plan to extend him beyond this year, so who knows? I mean, the Flames are in a position where it's do or die for them now. They're on the cusp of a playoff spot. They're not in the playoffs. And Montreal's starting to heat up again, and Winnipeg is a better team now that they've got Pierre-Luc Dubois. They really got. I see why they made the move, and Sutter's had experience in Calgary, and they clearly know him well. So maybe they're hoping he gets the team going, but they really need to do something soon if they want to be competitive.
Well, like Calgary's not a bad team. Right?
No.
Like I think the top 4 teams in the North Division are the Leafs, Habs, Winnipeg, and Edmonton.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
But like Calgary, they're kind of stuck this year, right? And then Vancouver, like though the past 2 games, like I think it's just a hot streak. I think that's all it is. And then like obviously Ottawa sucks. Well, they're competitive, but they suck. Is that all 7 teams that I mentioned? I think that.
Yep. Yeah. No, you did.
So like, with Calgary, like, you got Sean Monahan, Goudreau, Backlund, Kachuk, Giordano's getting older now. He's not on the top pairing anymore. Noah Hannafin's now on the top pairing, and that's totally sucked his offense dry. Noah Hannafin's got like 4 or 5 points this year, and I don't even know if he's scored a goal yet. So like they really gotta shore up that defense. Like losing Brody and Hamonic hurts a lot. And I think Hamonic signed like a friggin' PTO with Vancouver. Like as Calgary, like how can you just let that go then?
I don't understand.
Hamonic plays on the top pairing. Well, I don't know about for Vancouver, but he played on the top pairing.
Wait, no, not in Calgary. Calgary's top pairing would have been Giordano and Brody.
Right, but
so second pairing.
Hamonic got a lot of the same heavy defensive opportunities that Brody got. Yeah. Right, a lot of the PK, a lot of the shutdown minutes. Right, like Hamonic is a really solid defensive defenseman, and losing those 2 really good defensemen will hurt a lot. Because that's minutes that you have to replace with someone. And if you're already tight to the cap, like Calgary is, you have to fill those minutes with rookies or with cheap veteran depth options, right? Like Juuso Välimäki, and then Rasmus Andersson, and then Noah Hanifin. Like Hanifin is considered a vet now. Like he's kind of a vet. I don't really.
It's fucked up to call him a vet. I don't. Yeah. I wouldn't call him a vet. I know it's. I see why you're saying it, but it just feels weird to me to call him a vet. That's like Mitch Marner a vet.
Yeah.
Which again, you could make the argument weird. Now, I think the one thing that the Flames got to keep in mind with this Sutter hiring is that there have been allegations of abuse against him in the past. Daniel Carcillo.
With Sutter?
Yeah, with Daryl Sutter. And I know the Flames just got out of their, well, not just, but they did get out of their own fiasco a couple months ago with the whole Bill Peters thing. So I obviously the Flames must feel confident that the abuse allegations didn't actually happen to bring him back, because that would be a terrible look if you hired one toxic coach and fired one toxic coach and hired another. But Daniel Carcillo, he's quoted as saying here, I'm reading off the article. He said, Daryl is a bad human being. I believe that from all my interactions with him, from what I saw him do to teammates. He didn't get rehabilitated. I definitely know that Daryl didn't step away and get rehabilitated in any way, shape, or form, and now he's stepping back. And that's how hockey culture works. They stand by these guys that they hold in high regard despite their behavior. That's the epitome of the problem. So it sounds like Carcillo's got some serious beef with Daryl Sutter. And Sutter's denied this, but it wasn't really like I wouldn't call it like a full-on denial. Like he didn't take every allegation, dissect them individually. He said he was asked whether he had done either thing that Carcillo alleged. Sutter answered, "No, I think honesty and truth always prevails. We'll leave it at that." So I don't know. That's a real gray area for me. And just to specify and shed some more light on that quote, the two things that Carcillo was talking about, he said that he saw Sutter kick a player in the lower back on the bench, and that the coach apparently berated Matt Green, the former Kings defenseman, out of the dressing room before a team meeting, specifically because he had a concussion. So apparently he said something like, "What the fuck are you doing here? I don't want your negative energy in here. You're injured. Get out." Carcillo made that allegation in 2019. So hopefully the Flames know and are confident that Daryl Sutter won't act like this towards his team, because I think the last thing the Calgary Flames need is another toxic coach after they got rid of Bill Peters.
Yeah.
We don't know. Like, Sutter denied it, but it's I don't know, man. Real gray area for me.
Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, man. That, like, what is it with hockey culture and loving abusive coaches?
I don't know. I've always grown up.
This is a management. This is an ownership hire.
Yeah.
I guarantee that.
Oh yeah, no, it wasn't Brad Treliving, I don't think.
No.
Like I always grew up knowing, or like kind of being taught, that coaches can be hard asses and sometimes they'll yell at you and you just got to respond in a positive way. But I think there is a fine line between a hard ass coach and an abusive coach.
Yep.
Because at some point you're going to lose your players like that. Like Carcillo seems to hate Daryl Sutter. So like, obviously I don't think Daryl Sutter is a grown man. I doubt that he wouldn't be making allegations if it was just a simple yelling at him on the bench or something like that. Like, it's a pretty gray area. I hope the Flames know what they're getting into, bringing him back.
Well, and in looking at Daryl Sutter's history as a coach, like, it's a really, really good resume. But here's the thing, though, like, shitty people can still have success, right? Like, we see that with Mike Babcock, and in watching that interview that he did with, I think it was Catherine Simpson.
Christine Simpson.
Christine Simpson?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I just hope that, like, I hope Daryl isn't as toxic anymore. And yeah, man, I don't know. Like, this is just, it's such a weird hire. Like, of all coaches, you have to hire Daryl again, in which, like, the only, I mean, I guess,
you know what I don't understand?
I guess ownership was probably like, all right, so which coaches are available? Bruce Boudreau, no. Gerard Gallant, no.
I was just gonna say, can I interject here and ask how the fuck coaches keep getting hired, but no one is taking a flyer on Gerard Gallant? I don't understand it. I don't think there's been any allegations against Gerard Gallant. I don't think he's part of the. I don't think so. I don't think he's part of the coaches that have had allegations made against them. He's a pretty damn good coach. I don't understand why he hasn't gotten a call yet. Like, I know Montreal probably had some faith in Ducharme being their guy, and then there's also that extra pressure about hiring a French-speaking coach in Montreal. I think Gerard Gallant's French, isn't he?
Yeah. Well, he's
maybe not full on.
I think he's from Newfoundland or New Brunswick.
He is from. Okay, it gives me a city, but not a.
I think
He's from PEI, Summerside
PEI.
PEI. So maybe I don't know. I don't think I'm not sure if he speaks French or not, but if he does, that would have been a good hire for Montreal too. Yeah, I mean, like you said, all you can do at this point is hope that Daryl Sutter's changed his ways and he's not going to be like this in the future. But I don't know if ownership thinks that this hiring is going to light a fire under the Flames' asses, then I'm excited to see how that plays out for them. But it sounds like there's a plan to extend him beyond this year. So I'm not sure what the future looks like in Calgary with him.
That's some weird shit, man. That's some funky chicken. Like,
yeah. So moving on.
Gerard Gallant did coach Montreal. Sorry, he does speak French.
And did he? Oh yeah, he did coach Montreal at one point. Jeez, wow.
That might coach them. He was an assistant coach.
Okay, that makes sense. My bad. Yeah, he used to coach the Blue Jackets, and he was on Montreal's staff at one point. But I don't know.
Head coach of Columbus. Whoa.
Head coach of Columbus. He was in the early 2000s for a little bit. So moving on, Brent Seabrook just retired. What do you think about that?
I think it's too bad. And we see the issue a lot of the times nowadays of players winning cups and then they sign those big, huge contracts. And then all of a sudden, within 3 years, it's like, oh shit, he's actually not worth that contract. Weird. He's actually past his prime. Oh shit, we can't trade this contract. Oh shit, we have to put him on LTIR now. Oh shit, we don't have enough money for that. Now we have to keep playing him, right? Like Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews are very good players. Patrick Kane, I will say, is absolutely worth his contract right now. Jonathan Toews, I don't think so, right? And Duncan Keith's contract is one heck of a funky chicken-looking contract as well. Brent Seabrook, he just fell off a cliff. Like he
did.
Too many injuries. And in his prime, he was friggin' amazing.
Great. His prime, he's the type of guy I would have wanted on the top pairing alongside Morgan Riley.
Hell yeah.
Like Brent Seabrook. I would take him on any playoff run. But it sucks because the thing is it was time. It seems like he's just at an age where his injury history probably isn't worth re-aggravating just to squeeze out maybe 2 more years of his career. Like, if his style of play was sustainable into your late 30s, early 40s, maybe, but you don't really see guys who play like Brent Seabrook making it at the level that he was at in his prime once he gets to like age 36 or age 37, right?
Well, because he's 35 right now.
Yeah. It's tough to see, but with that contract and his performance last year, I think it was probably time to hang him up. There's really not that much else you're going to be getting out of that. And I think sometimes it's better to go out while you're hot than to, and not to say that Seabrook was hot at the time that he retired, but instead of, being put on LTIR for like 4 years and going like 3-4 years without playing before officially retiring, I think it's better for Seabrook just to pull the plug on it now and say there's realistically probably not another opportunity for me to play hockey in the NHL.
Well, he's got his 3 cups, and I believe he's got an Olympic gold medal as well, so he's fine.
Yeah, his repertoire does not need more padding. He's got everything a Canadian hockey player could dream of having: Stanley Cups, gold medal. Like he's good to
success.
Go.
Yeah.
So the Nashville Predators have been they've been one of the weaker teams in the Central Division this year. So I know you had a lot of things to say about this, Mark. So I'll let you take the lead here.
Okay, so right now you look at the Nashville Predators; they're not doing well, and looking at their trade chips. Apparently to The Athletic and to TSN, Philip Forsberg's on the trade board, Matthias Ekholm's on the trade board, Mikael Granlund's on the trade board. I'm really worried. I'm really worried that David Poile, he's the GM still, right? Yeah. I'm worried that Nashville is going to trade away too much and they're going to rebuild with nothing. Because you look at their forwards, on the second line, they've got Rocco Grimaldi. Do you even know who that is?
Yes, I do. I only know who he is because I remember him in NHL 14 franchise mode. He had like 3 green stars, and he could end up turning into a solid third line forward. But that's the only reason I know him. He's also very small, isn't he? He's like 5'6" or something, 5'5".
Yep. He's like a water bug.
Little guy.
So you've got Rocco Grimaldi on the second line with 3 goals, 1 assist, 4 points.
Mm-hmm.
The highest score on Nashville. I know that's like bringing up Rocco Grimaldi is kind of irrelevant, but like he's on the second line, and that just shows you how bad Nashville's offense is.
Mm-hmm.
Philip Forsberg is the highest scorer on Nashville with 24 points. And if Nashville trades him away, they've got nothing good on offense. Well, like you say, Mikael Granlund, Matt Duchene, Ryan Johansson, sure, they're solid, but they're not worth their pay. Matt Duchene's getting $8 million a year. Friggin'
Johansson's getting something like that too, isn't he?
Like, it's just like, guys, come on. And they've got Yaroslav Askarov in their pipeline, who's a very, very, very good goalie. He's doing really well in the KHL. And their defense is Matthias Ekholm, Ryan Ellis, Roman Josi. That's a really good defensive core to build around. But do they trade away those guys? Should they trade away those guys?
See,
No.
So where my idea of thinking comes into this one, I really like that point you made earlier on when you said that they shouldn't blow everything up and have nothing. Because the reality is, Roman Josi, while he is, I believe, 32 right now or something like that, he's the type of player that you can bet on. He's the team captain right now, so you don't want to trade a guy like Josi. But I think the Preds are just kind of in that weird area where they don't have the ability to compete, especially with teams like LA and Minnesota on the upswing. Like LA, I'm not sure if they'll make the playoffs this year. I think they're barely holding on to a playoff spot. But point is, in years coming, they're going to have Quentin Byfield coming up. They're going to have Alex Turcotte coming up. They're going to have Arthur Kaliev.
They've got options.
They've got an up and coming team. And Minnesota's been on another level this year. Kirill Kaprizov's been amazing. Jordan Greenway, your boy, like they've all been stepping up.
Yep.
And I don't think the Predators, and I'm when I say this, I'm speaking in terms of a couple years in the future when we're back to the regular Central and West divisions, or Pacific divisions rather than the
I don't
North.
think we ever go back.
That's a very hot take.
Yeah.
You think we're at North Division forever now?
I don't know about the North Division, but I think with the NHL selling the rights, the naming rights to the divisions, I'm not sure if we ever go back to those, like the regular divisions. I'm not sure if we do.
Well, that's a discussion for another episode. I think we'll be here for another hour if we divulge into that one, but definitely something to talk about in the future. But either way, the point that I was trying to make is that Nashville's kind of at a point where with teams like LA and Minnesota kind of on the upswing, and I don't know that Nashville is going to be able to remain competitive at the level they want to year in and year out. But I also don't think they're in a position where you got to sell the entire team and start from scratch. They've got guys that can be competitive in the future. And they've got, like you said, sure, Pekka Rinne's not getting any younger, but they've got Yaroslav Askarov coming up and he could be here within a year or two.
Well, and I think like UC Saros is like kind of like a Jonathan Bernier in a sense, where like he has a lot of hype around him leading up to his career in the NHL, but then his lack of size is what ultimately holds him back. He'll be a decent goalie in the NHL, but
I wouldn't trust him taking the reins over for Pekka Rinne.
No,
and I think that's why they got Askarov, obviously. But point is, they've got pieces that can make them somewhat remain competitive. But I think the best thing for them at this point, try and unload some of those albatross contracts like Duchene's and Johansson's, and get some assets. It's going to be tough, but try and get some assets back and do like a half rebuild sort of. Don't completely tank your way. Don't pull like a Toronto in 2015-16 and tank your way to the bottom. Did you hear that Mike Babcock actually admitted during that interview with Simpson that the Leafs tanked for Matthews?
Well, I mean, like, come on. Like,
it was hard not to. I mean,
Toronto's not the only team that's done that, though.
No, certainly
like,
not.
Pittsburgh with Mario Lemieux? Come on. Like,
and the Leafs needed a number one center more than anything at the time. There literally wasn't a better player than Matthews. They missed out on McDavid the year before, and if they didn't do it for Matthews, who knows? Maybe they'd have a 1-2 punch of Tavares and Nico Hischier now. But either way, they're not in a position where they should completely tear it down and restart like Toronto did or like Buffalo seems to do every year. But I mean, I don't think they're in a position where they can really contribute and really contend like they'd want to and like they have in like years past, like 2017. So I don't know. I think Nashville could do a half rebuild, but their window's closing pretty quickly. I don't think they're at a point now where they want to sell off all their assets and buy to try and remain competitive. They're second last, if I recall correctly, in the Central Division. But they're also not at a point where I'd want them to tear down. I don't think they'd want to tear down either. So
their team is pretty old as well. Their youngest guy on the team is Eli Tolvanen at 21, and he's not exactly a regular on the team, right? So like Dante Fabro's 22, but like you look at the Leafs, Matthews is 23, Marner's 23, Nylander's 24. Like
the Leafs have, young core.
Nashville, man, like their defense, you can build something around the defense. Ryan Ellis, Matthias Ekholm, and Roman Josi. Keep those three, and just build on the forwards. Like I think Nashville, they need to figure out something with Matt Duchene. Either get new line mates or find a team that needs to get to the floor like Ottawa, and just try and cut a deal as best possible there. Like
how comical would that be if Matt Duchene went back to Ottawa?
I mean, I kind of like offhandedly suggested that, but now, like that would actually be kind of hilarious.
I would.
But like Ryan Johansson's, he's not worth $8 million. Like, nope. I don't know. Like they need to pump the forward picks now. Like taking Yaroslav Askarov was a good idea. I'm not sure if it was the right idea, but it probably is the right idea.
I think it was the right idea.
Yeah, because it covers them. It covers them for the long term.
Mm-hmm.
And now, like, forwards are the easiest to develop. It's the defense and goaltending that are like it's just a lottery, right?
Yeah.
Like you just never know.
Mm-hmm.
So Nashville, their second leading scorer is Roman Josi. And then the third leading scorer is Victor Arvidsson at 12 points.
Yeah.
12
They need more from their offense this year.
William Nylander would be their second leading scorer.
Oh, but he's overpaid and he has no heart though.
Oh. But like I think Nylander would be tied for the goal scoring lead on Nashville as well.
He would. I think he would too.
Yeah, he would be. So then like Duchene's got 8 points this season. And he's making $8 million. He gets $1 million per point. Cool, good for him. But Nashville, they need to be careful about this. If they end up trading Ellis or Ekholm or Josi, it's a mistake, and they've gone too far. They just need to retool the offense.
I agree. Yeah, I think that they gotta figure out that situation, unload the Albatross contracts, and to draft some forwards in the next couple of years and really try and revamp that Nashville forward core.
And it's kind of funny this year though, because it's all good. This year's draft is defense heavy. So
it is.
I don't know if Nashville is going to get the forward that they need from this year's draft.
No, 2022 though, anything's up for grabs. 2022 is going to be a good draft.
That's the year for Nashville to tank.
Brad Lambert, he's another big guy.
And
so while we're talking about trading here, we can close out on this one, the trade deadline. So I know you had some thoughts about the way things are going to go this year.
It's going to be weird, man, because like we're already a month away from the deadline, and players take if you're trading into the North Division, you got the 2 weeks of quarantine, and then it takes however many weeks to get used to the system. So if I'm Dubas or any GM right now in the North Division, I'm looking at trades this week. I need to get my players before that deadline, and I need to get my players off the ground and running before it's too late.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because I believe it was Thursday night during the Leafs and Canucks game where Elliot Friedman in intermission said that he believes that if the Leafs are going to make a trade, it's going to happen before, I think, Thursday, March 11th was the date that he mentioned, because the Leafs coming up, they've got this stretch of games against Winnipeg, but they have a 5-day break between March 14th and March 19th. And then they have another 5-day break between March 20th and March 25th. So if the Leafs were to make a trade with an American team on March 11th, that is the day that they could make a trade, and they would only have 4 games missed by whoever they deal. So hypothetically, say they were to move someone like Alex Kerfoot. in a trade with an American team. If they traded Kerfoot before Thursday the 11th, Kerfoot would only miss 4 games. Like the Leafs wouldn't have Kerfoot in their lineup for 4 games. And then after those 4 games, whoever they'd get back would be able to crack the lineup.
Yep.
So,
and then you can call up Galchenyuk within
exactly.
that time.
They've got internal options they can use. So
yep.
I think that would make the most sense. This year's deadline is going to be really fucky in the sense that all the trades are being, I mean, truthfully, Kyle Dubas usually likes to make most of his trades a month before the deadline anyways. We've seen that with Muzzin. We've seen that with Campbell and Clifford. He's not a big trading on the deadline day guy, right?
No.
But truth be told, I think with the quarantine, the 14-day quarantine in effect, and I think with
is it still 14 or is it 10 now?
I think it's 14 still, but I think I remember reading something that Canadian teams were working with the federal government to try and decrease the amount of days players would have to quarantine for, like hockey players would. Okay. So who knows how that's going to end up. I think either way, I think we're going to see a trade pretty soon. I think the Leafs are really going to take advantage of the lack of games over the next 2 weeks, and they're going to use that to their advantage. It seems like the Dubas thing to do.
Well, and like we see a bunch of teams now, like because the season has gone on, they're accruing cap space, right? So teams are now getting more and more space as the days go by. So more flexibility will be able to happen. And I'm saying that Thursday, March 11th, that's on the Thursday. That is my NHL trade deadline. If I'm any Canadian GM right now, that is my deadline.
You know, it sucks that the Canadian teams get fucked over by the deadline because anyone going from the Canadian team to an American team won't have to quarantine. I mean, I think I think there's a bit of a quarantine period required, but it's only like 3 days or something. Like guys coming to Canada are like, they're fucked. They gotta isolate themselves for almost 2 weeks before they can actually do anything. So Canadian teams kind of got fucked over with this whole thing, but it does make sense.
Like they're not even allowed to like practice with the team, I don't think.
No, like it's a full on quarantine. And it's like,
so like, it's like, all right, Pierre, here's some paperwork. Here's some video work to watch. And in the meantime, don't eat too much McDonald's.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah, there's really, and you know what? It makes sense because I'd rather have a guy have to wait 14 days before playing for the Leafs and have him come in right away, give the whole team COVID. But it sucks. The Canadian teams did get fucked over on that front, in my opinion.
I think the 2 weeks is a little extreme.
A little bit. I think if you can pass a number of positive, or not positive tests. I think if you can pass a number of negative tests over that span, I think there's at some point you would have to just take. I won't say take a chance, but you'd have to realize, okay, there's a astronomically low chance that they have COVID. Like 14 days is the safest route to go for sure, but like if they're passing negative tests every single day and they've been by themselves with nobody else since, like what more do you need, right?
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you though, like Jack Eichel, is he getting traded?
No, he's not getting traded. I think if the Sabres trade Jack Eichel, that'll be the most pathetic display of star management I've ever witnessed in my life. Because Jack Eichel was supposed to be the guy that turned the Sabres around and stopped them from being the Oilers of the East. He was supposed to be the guy that I won't say single-handedly, but he was supposed to play a massive part in turning around the Sabres. And it just hasn't worked. And Jack Eichel, it was good enough to be compared to Connor McDavid. It's obvious who the better player is between him and McDavid, but at the time he was good enough to be compared. It was called the McEichel sweepstakes for nothing. Or it wasn't called that for nothing, right?
Yeah.
So like I don't think the Sabres can move on from Eichel that quickly. I think they got to do whatever they can to it's a tough situation, man. The Sabres suck. But I think, and you know what? If it comes to that, what are you going to get in return for Jack Eichel that would make that trade worth it? Because you're not getting 5 Jack Eichels in return. Like, you can get X amount of prospects and X amount of picks in return, but that just sets you back another 4 years. That you're not doing anything for the fans. Like, I don't think Kevin Adams really has much of a choice here. I think he's got to do something to free himself from the bad contracts. First of all, like having Skinner making $9 million is just terrible. But I think he's got to do something to turn the team around. I know that's what he's been trying to do. I know that's what he did with signing Taylor Hall this offseason, but it's just painful to see how bad they are. And I think I think he's going to piss off a great deal of fans if they trade Jack Eichel and they're stuck in the basement for another 5 years. There's not too many instances when I would say start from the ground up. And there's not too many instances when I'd say build your core through trading and through free agency. Like that's what Brian Burke did. As we all know too well, and it didn't work out. But I don't know if the Sabres have much of a choice right now. If they want to try and be competitive, but also somewhat keep the fans happy, I'd have to imagine the fans are pretty disgruntled right now. I don't think they're too happy with the way they've played over the past 10 years, honestly. But well, I think if they get to a point where they have to trade Eichel, it's going to look really, really bad on them as an organization. So I think for that purpose, they're not trading him.
And you can't win a trade trading Eichel. You won't win.
Unless, like I said, unless you get 2 guys or 3 guys in return that can produce like Eichel would, it's not a winning trade.
Like the return that Ottawa got for Erik Karlsson was really uninspiring. Mm-hmm. It's like, who do they have from that trade?
Well, that trade looks better for them now because Karlsson hasn't been doing well in San Jose. But they got Josh Norris back. I think they got another. Actually, and yes, I think they got the first round pick that they used to pick Stützle. So yeah, that is actually a good return for Karlsson. Okay. But I see what you're saying. At the time, it didn't look that appealing.
Right. Yeah. Sorry, I look like a dummy right now. But
I know what you were trying to say. At the time, it didn't look that appealing.
At the time, people were like, are you joking me? You traded a Norris-winning defenseman for quarters on the dollar. You can't do that, right? And then with Eichel, and you got to make the money work with Eichel too, because he's making $10 million for, I think, 5 more years, 5 or 4.
He's on a media extension right now for sure.
So, you don't have to worry about his contractual obligations. You just have to make sure that you're shipping out the right dollars. And then you got to also make sure that what you're shipping out isn't too much, or it's just the right amount, right? Because it's easy to say okay, so in order to make the dollars work, we got to look at the higher paid players, but the higher paid players normally outside of Buffalo are your better players, right? So Toronto, it's Marner, Matthews, and Tavares, right? Those are the kind of guys that you'd be looking at. And then you look at any team like Pittsburgh, Malkin, every team's best players are their most paid players. Yeah. So with Eichel, for Buffalo's instance, Buffalo needs forwards. They need defense. They need goaltending.
They need everything.
They need a good team.
Yeah. They don't have it right now. And another 5 years of picking in the top 10 isn't going to do anything for them.
Well, no, here's the thing. It won't do them anything if they continue to screw it up.
Yeah, exactly.
Rasmus Dahlin, I fear, is going to not end up as good as he could be.
Because he's in Buffalo. And you trade him and he's going to be like, oh, I fucking hated everything about Buffalo. It made me lose interest in playing hockey, like Ryan O'Reilly said.
And that's the thing of trading away too much in a rebuild. You expose your rookies to too much. That was the one thing between Nonis and Burke and Lou, was that they all protected the prospects in some sense, besides Luke Schenn. Somehow Luke Schenn was just the sacrificial lamb. Which I feel awful for that now, looking back at that. But looking at the prospects in Toronto's history, the GMs were all relatively solid about protecting the prospects. Whether or not they got the right ones is anyone's prerogative and judgment, right? But it's the fact of, you need to understand on how much is too much on trading away your pieces, because you look at the Predators, they can easily get a king's ransom for Philip Forsberg. The guy's on a nice contract right now, $6 million for 2 years. So for any contender, it's hell yeah, sign up for that one. Let's give out a first round pick and a high-end prospect and a roster player and call it a day. But then for Nashville's prerogative, their agenda is to get better forwards. They don't need the defense. They don't need a goaltender. They need better.
I think whichever team ends up, if Philip Forsberg does end up getting traded, I think whichever team trades for him is going to give up a king's ransom.
You have to.
Boyle is going to milk the shit out of that trade.
He has to.
Yeah, you're right.
In order to properly rebuild for that kind of trade, you have to make sure that you get the right pieces back. But I think in this case, guys like Eichel and Forsberg just have to be the sacrificial lambs, just like JVR and Kessel and Bozak and Kadri were.
You hope that doesn't end up being the case in Buffalo for Eichel, because Eichel's still only like 24 years old, man. Like they got to get something out of that.
And then you put it into baseball terms, Mike Trout, he's a sacrificial lamb there. His prime's being wasted. It's no secret there.
No.
He hates it there, I bet. He's making a ton of money, so that's
I'm sure
fine.
He would love it there if they would win, but just the fact that he's only gotten one lick of the postseason, I think they got swept in his one postseason appearance. Like that's
not
tough.
Enough. Not
enough for a guy like him.
Eichel hasn't even made the playoffs, dude.
No.
Philip Forsberg with the Predators at least made the finals. Eichel has been sitting on the sidelines every April.
It's unfortunate because when Buffalo drafted Eichel and then the Leafs drafted Matthews a year later, I thought we were going to see a legitimate rivalry brew out of Toronto and Buffalo.
Dude, Eichel loves playing Toronto.
Oh, he does. And Matthews loves playing Buffalo. Yeah. Like it's a match made in heaven, but it's tough to see because I don't know. I mean, they haven't been able to. Buffalo hasn't been able to get to that level where they would be considered for a rivalry of Toronto. So,
and that's trading away too much and signing the wrong players for too much money. Yeah. Okposo, Skinner, come on, come on.
Yeah,
and then Colin Miller. What the hell happened with Colin Miller?
I forgot about Colin Miller until this year. Honestly, I think that's just the Buffalo effect.
He was a top pairing defenseman for Vegas that first season, and then somehow he lost footing on that team, and then he was traded to Buffalo, and now he's bad.
He's nothing. Yeah,
he's bad.
It's tough.
So
yeah, hopefully, I don't know, but Buffalo's gonna have to do something. I think that's the bottom line.
And I feel bad for
Eichel.
And I feel bad for Taylor Hall though, because the guy literally just sabotaged his season. He's got one goal this year, 1 or 2 goals.
He was really betting on himself coming into this year, and they haven't been able to get anything done.
Congrats, Darren Ferris. You just made another client look like a clown. Because Taylor Hall's sorry.
No, it's all good. One more, yeah.
Taylor Hall's got a lot of hard miles, and then he's not playing up to his potential. So Buffalo's going to try and trade him, but they're going to get quarters on the dollar. So Buffalo bungled another one.
Yeah, do it, Buffalo. Come on, Buffalo. Figure it out.
So,
all right. Well, that more or less wraps up today's episode. Any closing thoughts, Mark?
Well, here's hoping that Toronto doesn't make this losing thing a trend. And I feel good about the Leafs. 2 games, remember, 18-6-2. It's okay. We'll be fine in the playoffs. So
that's the hope. All right. One quick shout out again to my buddy Sean Galena from last time. He listened for his shout out. He acknowledged it, and I think that means he listened to the end of the episode once again. So as we do, we've promised him another shout out. So Sean, thanks for listening, buddy. Hopefully you can attract our 7th, 8th, and 9th listeners respectively.
Nice.
All right. Once again, if you listened and you stuck with us right till the end, we love you and appreciate you. Let us know. We'll give you a shout out.
Thank you.
Take it easy, Leafs Nation. Go Leafs, go.
Go Leafs, go.
Leafs,
NHL,
rumors,
prospects,
banter,
and everything in between.
This is the Shanaclan Podcast
with Hobbs
and
Lugtsy.